In addition to constantly scheming and plotting ways to seize power, Democrats are also making time for another important part of their agenda, and that is smearing men for simply existing. Take a look.
There's part of the Democratic Party became more and more anti-men, or describing that they were part of the problem, or they have toxic traits, and for those things. And that's why there's been such a big migration away from the Democratic Party, from young men, and that's really why why we lost in 2024. Now, if you identify anyone as the problem or blame them for some things, then you're going to lose. We forgot that we are in the business of addition, not subtraction.
Now, Senator Fetterman, basically the only voice of reason inside the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, he's talking into a void. Here now with more Texas Senator Ted Cruz. You know, if I want to get Ted Cruz worked up and angry on this show tonight, I could say, you know, Senator, I think you'd be a great Supreme Court justice yourself. And you would think most people would take that as a compliment. Alan Dershowitz said you were one of his smartest students at Harvard Law, one all time, and he taught there for decades. But if I say, Senator, would you ever consider the U.S. Supreme Court? You rip my head off. What's up with that?
Sean, it is kind of you to say, you know full well, I don't want to be a judge. I want to be in the arena. I want to be fighting these loons that just tried to redistrict Virginia and got their tails whipped. Fighting these loons. Look, you just played my colleague, John Fetterman. John has become a good friend. He really has shown a lot of courage speaking up in a Democrat Party that is just witches. Like, that ain't a big populace. And they've decided, number one, when it comes to men, if you're a Democrat and the only thing you have to say about men are the words toxic masculinity. You know, I don't think being a man is toxic. I don't think being a father is toxic. I don't think being a husband is toxic. I don't think being strong and leading is toxic. But yet the Democrat Party, they tell young men, everything about you is unacceptable. You need to be this soy latte castrati in pajamas. and it's not shocking that they're hemorrhaging among young men and among anyone with any sense.
Okay, but you're laying out the case of what is on the line in less than 6 months. And I don't even think the issues that will ultimately define the outcome of the midterms have even happened yet. But Iran will resolve itself. Gas prices will stabilize. Yep. I believe the president has laid the predicate, the foundation for, you know, probably 4, 5, 6% GDP growth, which is historic in every way. And I think all of that's beginning to unfold before our eyes, which is why the stock market, I believe, is reacting the way it is. Then you add to that, they want men to play in women's sports, be in women's locker rooms. They want sanctuary cities and states. They want open borders. They want sex change operations funded by taxpayers for illegals. They voted for the biggest tax increase in history. And they're led by AOC, the Squad, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and nobody dares challenge them. They all seem to cower in fear, with the exception.
Our take on the history of America, and that she said our revolution was a revolution against the billionaires. And basically, she retold it as a Marxist revolution. And I don't know whether that's more ignorance or ideology, but it's both together. If you look at the American Revolution, who are we fighting against? We declared our independence from totalitarian government, from King George, from government that taxed you and controlled you, just like AOC and Elizabeth Warren and Ilhan Omar want to do. And by the way, who was the American Revolution funded by? It was funded by people like Robert Morris, who was the wealthiest person in the colonies. It was funded by people like George Washington, who in modern terms was worth about $600 million. People like Thomas Jefferson. It was American free enterprise capitalists who invested in seeking freedom. And by the way, AOC also said, it is impossible for anyone to earn $1 billion. Which, look, I recognize for her, given that she was a bartender, that's probably true. And there's no disrespect to bartenders. Bartenders are an honorable profession. But she went from that to being a government employee and a parasite sucking on the taxpayer. But you look at think of Henry Ford, who invented the Model T, who invented the assembly line, and basically created the American middle class. You don't think that produced billions of dollars? Look at Elon Musk making electric cars, making self-driving cars, sending rocket ships to the moon. He's going to be sending rocket ships to Mars. And yet these left-wing zealots say if you are successful, if you are producing, if you are creative, you are bad. We want a Congress. God help this country.
You know, let me ask you, wasn't this supposed to be a battle for American independence? They wanted independence. Did she ever hear anything about taxation without representation, or the Stamp Act, or the T Act, or the Townsend Act? Are these new Lexington and Concord, the first shots fired? Didn't many of our framers and founders risk their lives and fortune for this cause of freedom? Did she forget that part? Or maybe a product of,
amen.
you know, yeah.
If you look at the Declaration of Independence, which was signed July 4th, 1776 by 56 men, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. And most of them lost their lives. Most of them lost their fortune, but not a one of them lost their honor. And in fact, they brought into fruition, I think, the greatest country in the history of the world. The problem with the left, number one, it is profound ignorance. They don't know those basic facts. But number two, they're in the business of lying to young people. If you care about social justice, look, leftists like to call themselves social justice warriors. You know what, Sean? I actually think you and I are social justice warriors. We want to see people do better. We want to see poverty overcome. The greatest enemy poverty has ever seen is the American free enterprise system. Nothing has lifted more people out of poverty. If you want to come from nothing and achieve the American dream, it is capitalism that the leftists are trying to destroy that produced that, and yet they are trying to lie and deceive young people, and it's getting real traction, which means we got to push back.
Well, I hate to say it as we end this interview, but you just made the perfect case for me that you'd be a great Supreme Court.
24/7 news coverage. The network provides round-the-clock reporting on national and international breaking news, politics, business, and entertainment. Opinion and commentary. Much of its primetime programming features conservative political commentary and analysis from well-known personalities. Multi-platform media, beyond the main cable channel they operate. Fox Business Network focuses on financial news and market updates. Fox News Radio syndicates news and talk shows across the country. Fox Nation, a subscription-based streaming service with original documentaries and lifestyle content. Digital apps, mobile and TV apps that provide live streams, on-demand video, and real-time news alerts. Current key personalities. The network's lineup frequently features anchors and hosts such as